Shavua Tov. If somebody were to pay top dollar for something they could have had for free, we'd probably call them a name and it probably would not be a complimentary one. Yet that is exactly what Abraham does when he seeks a burial plot for his beloved wife Sarah, who has passed away at the ripe young age of 127. He has his heart set on the cave of Machpelah in the town of Hebron, and he comes to the owner of that field, of that spot, a fellow by the name of Ephron, who is a member of the Bnei Chet, the sons of Chet. I guess Chet was a tribe. And Ephron says to him, "Listen, you are a prince. You are such a respected person. I or anyone else here in our town would be happy to give you any burial plot you wish for free. Take it for free." But Abraham says, "No, sorry. I want to pay top dollar." So he's paying for something he could have had for free. And Ephron finally relents and he charges him an exorbitant price. He charges him 400 centenary shekels. What's a centenary shekel? It is 100 times the value of a regular shekel. So Ephron is charging Abraham 40,000 regular shekels, which Abraham promptly pays. Why did he insist on buying it when it was being offered to him as a gift? And furthermore, in the future, the whole land is going to belong to Abraham when his descendants come back from Egypt. So it's going to be his anyway. Why did he need to purchase it now? Let him accept the gift and then rely on the fact that it'll come into the possession of the Jewish people in just a few generations. What was the need for this purchase? The answer to these questions, I believe, bears directly on our relationship to the land of Israel, the Holy Land, and it also has a relationship to what is currently going on. Let's dig in. Answer number one, why did Abraham insist on paying? Because of Sarah. You see, the mitzvah of burial is a very important one. The rabbis call it a chesed shel emet, a truthful act of loving kindness. Why truthful? Because one does not do it with the expectation of any reciprocal favor. Therefore, it is proper to do it in the best possible manner, and to bury someone in a field that one got for free is a bit disrespectful. So Abraham, as a token of his respect and love for his wife, wants to pay top dollar as a tribute to her and as a fulfillment in the highest level of this important commandment. Answer number one, beautiful answer. Answer number two, there is something called a mekach ta'ut, a false transaction, when someone sells something or buys something under false pretenses. And I think Abraham was concerned that Ephron had no idea what he was offering to Abraham. He thought he's offering him a cave to bury people in, and Abraham understood that this is not just any simple cave. This is a special spot with a tremendous spiritual power and beauty. You know, I had a teacher in high school who used to say that every Jew needs glasses. Not glasses for seeing better, but glasses to how to perceive the world. Torah glasses, he would say. You have to have Torah glasses. So I'm going to add that we need to have holiness glasses, Kedusha glasses, because then we see the land of Israel in an entirely different light. The Torah tells us in the book of Numbers, in the episode of the spies, a little tidbit, a little fact, that Hebron, which is one of the spots that they went to see, specifically Kalev, was built 7 years before Tzoan in Egypt. Hebron was built 7 years before Tzoan in Egypt, and Rashi says, no, it wasn't. It was not built 7 years before Tzoan in Egypt. But the Torah says, what do you mean, Rashi? So Rashi explains, it's impossible that it was built 7 years before. Why? Because Mitzrayim, Egypt, is the name of a fellow who was a son of Ham. But so is Canaan. But Mitzrayim was the oldest. Now Ham, the father of Mitzrayim and Canaan, who is he going to build a city for first? Obviously the son of the oldest son. So he would have built Tzoan for Mitzrayim before he'd build, the oldest son, before he'd build Hebron for Canaan, the youngest son. So therefore it couldn't be that Hebron was 7 years older than Tzoan in Mitzrayim. But why does the Torah say that it is? The Torah is telling us an answer in code. It's telling us that even though Egypt is the most beautiful land in the world, says Rashi, there's a verse from the prophets, Kegan Hashem, like the garden of God, Ke'eretz Mitzrayim, like the land of Egypt. And Tzoan was the place in Egypt where the kings and the elites had their palaces. So it was the swankiest neighborhood, the most beautiful part of the most beautiful country. Even so, and even though Hebron was in the land of Canaan, which is an average land, but Hebron was not considered the best part. It was perhaps one of the least desirable parts. It was called Tirashin in Aramaic, which means, I guess, a difficult land. And it was set aside for burial, not for the king's palaces. And even so, says Rashi, the Torah is telling us in code that Hebron was 7 times more beautiful than Tzoan of Egypt. Not that it was built 7 years before, but it was 7 times more beautiful in code. What, where, why? How does this happen? The answer is, what glasses do we use to look at the world? If we look at the world through holiness glasses, 7 symbolizes Kedusha, holiness. The Sabbath is the 7th day. The sabbatical is the 7th year. 7 is a number of holiness. Why so? Because we have 6 directions. We have north, south, east, west, up, and down. And they are disparate. But if we connect them with the central point that unifies them, that is holiness, that is God. That is the secret of Shabbos. That is the secret of the Shemitah of the sabbatical year. When one perceives the world with glasses of holiness, they realize that Hebron is 7 times more beautiful than anything the rest of the world could ever possibly offer. And so it is with the whole land of Israel. The land of Israel is a spiritual powerhouse, and when we are tuned into that, its beauty becomes magnified 7-fold. All of the land of Israel. And that includes some of the neighborhoods that we're having trouble with lately. In our house, for the last few Shabbosim, we've tried to sing songs like Ya Ribon Olam and Yom Ze Mechubad and Deror Yikra, written by 2 different rabbis. One was Rabbi Yisrael Najara, who lived in the 16th century, and the Deror Yikra is by Dunash ibn Labrat, who lived a few centuries before that. What do they both have in common? They were both rabbis of the great Jewish communities of Gaza. Yes, Gaza. Gaza, once upon a time, was a town with a very strong Jewish presence. As a matter of fact, Jews lived there until 1929. I am sure that there are the remains of synagogues there in Gaza, and who knows, the Jews that are currently in Gaza being held there against their will, maybe they are somewhere near or connected to those synagogues, and maybe they will gain some spiritual strength from that proximity. Who knows? At any rate, therefore, we see that the whole of the land of Israel, and that includes Gaza, has holiness. And we see that holiness, and we are devoted to that holiness because this is what lifts us all up. A third answer. My teacher, Rav Aaron Soloveitchik, explains that yes, Abraham could have had it for free. He didn't need to buy it. But he needed to buy it for psychological and emotional reasons, because there is something called a psychological ownership. What does that mean? He gives an example. There's a law that if Reuven has some fruits which he needs to leave with Shimon, and he leaves the fruits with Shimon to give him back after a certain amount of time, but Shimon sees that those fruits are beginning to rot, and he says, you know what, I'm going to go and sell them and get fresh fruits to return to Reuven. He's not allowed to do that. Why not? The rabbis tell us because a person would prefer 1 portion of his own produce rather than 9 portions of someone else's. So Rav Soloveitchik asks, wait a second, but it's not someone else's. If Shimon were to take those fruits and sell them and give back fresh fruits to Reuven, those fresh fruits are still Reuven's. They belong to him. Shimon would have no right to keep those fruits to himself. So it's not 9 portions of someone else's, it's his own as well, legally. But not psychologically. The answer is that even if his fruits are rotting, but they're his fruits. He planted the tree. He put in the effort. And therefore he feels a psychological, emotional connection to those fruits that outweighs their monetary value. So even if Shimon sells the fruits and gives him fresh ones, the fresh ones, while they may legally belong to Reuven, not psychologically. It was Shimon who did that, and that is taking away from Reuven what is his. Abraham needed that same sense, and that would explain why, by the way, it seems to say in the Parsha twice that the cave of Machpelah came into Abraham's possession. The first time it says it is when he paid the money. Then the cave comes up and comes into Abraham's possession. The next time it uses the same phrase, that the cave comes up and comes into Abraham's possession, is when he buried Sarah therein. So it's not just the monetary ownership, it's not just the legal ownership, but it's the physical ownership. When he buried Sarah there, he performed an act of possession, and then it really became his, psychologically his. And the reason why, says Rav Soloveitchik, he insisted on this psychological ownership was not just because of himself, but because of the future generations of Jews who would live in the land of Israel. They must know that it is psychologically ours, and therefore we have a desire to be moser nefesh, to devote ourselves to the utmost, to preserve and develop and grow the sanctity of the beautiful and powerful Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. And that includes all of Eretz Yisrael. Our dream, however practically we are to go about this, but our dream is that all of Eretz Yisrael will, in our own eyes, with our glasses of holiness, be the beautiful place that it is, and it will become the beautiful place that it can be, with all of the inhabitants dwelling in peace. May we have Besorot Tovot, Yeshuot, V'Nechamot, good tidings speedily in our days. Shavua Tov.